Kevin Coupe here, and this is FaceTime with the Content Guy. Well, it only took me a weekend, but I finally finished the new Steve Jobs biography by Walter Isaacson. And you won't be surprised to find out I want to share some of my thoughts about it. Now, first of all, it's a terrific read. It's 600 plus pages, but it is fascinating. It's a wonderful sort of Horatio Alger story about how this kid who was adopted and wasn't wanted by his birth parents ends up being in a situation where he quite frankly changes the world. It's a really interesting read. It's very honest about his character flaws, but it also celebrates his inspiration and his innovations. And it's a really interesting book. I thought what was one of the interesting things for me about it was the fact that there were so many mistakes and misjudgments in his career that I wasn't aware of. I mean, Pixar, for example, right, which has changed the world in terms of computer animation of movies. When he bought Pixar from George Lucas, he wasn't thinking about it in terms of producing movies like Toy Story and Finding Nemo. He was thinking about it because of the technology and how we could use other applications. Doing animated movies was sort of a sideline and ended up, changing the world of movie animation, and it's made him an awful lot of money. Next, which was the computer company he founded after he left Apple the first time he was exiled, that was pretty much a failure in a lot of ways, although when he sold it back to Apple, it positioned him to be able to retake power there and drive all the innovations that Apple drove over the last decade or so. So it's a fascinating book that way. I have to admit, I am troubled by a lot of the book. Not because I didn't like the writing, because I love the writing. I thought it was a fascinating story. But it's the whole notion of what price genius. I mean, listen. Walter Isaacson makes clear, and he's interviewed a lot of people, and he did 40 interviews with Jobs alone before he died. I mean, Jobs was a bit of a bastard. In fact, he was more than a bit of a bastard. And I'm sorry for the language, but I'm having trouble coming up with another word that's appropriate. I mean, I could come up with other words, but they're worse than bastard. I mean, he was really not a good guy. But part of the thing that didn't make him a good guy is he didn't think rules applied to him. On the other hand, in his professional life, one of the things that allowed him to innovate was the fact that he didn't see restrictions, he didn't see boundaries, he didn't see limitations, and that allowed him to think beyond where most of us think. And I keep wondering to myself, again, what price genius? Is it important, is it critical in order to be a genius that, you have to have maybe some, personal difficulties or a messy private life in order to be able to achieve a lot of the things that Steve Jobs achieved? I simply don't know the answer to that question. Another question I keep thinking about is, at the end, when he passed away at 56, was Steve Jobs happy with the choices he made? I suspect he was, but, I wonder at some point if he looked at his wife and he looked at his kids and he considered, the totality of his life, was he satisfied with the choices he made? I simply don't know. But I find myself thinking about it a lot. And I guess that's the mark of a good book. Anyway, that's what's on my mind this Thursday morning. As always, I want to hear what's on your mind.